Today's episode of Behind the Numbers is brought to you by Hafley Flanagan. Hafley Flanagan is a full-service accounting firm that's been serving our clients since 1967. We are not your typical accounting firm. Our services extend well beyond tax and audit to include valuation services, strategic and succession planning, leadership development, and more. When you work with Hafley Flanagan, we help you realize your long-term goals. Learn more at hfco.com or call 856-722-5300.
Hi everyone, welcome to Behind the Numbers. My name is Dave Bookbinder and we are coming to you live from the RVN television studios. And I have a guest to my right today, and she is Sandy Borowsky, owner of Starr Bus Charter and Tours. And Sandy, I'm excited to have you here today on Behind the Numbers. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
It's a pleasure. Why don't you tell the audience a little bit about yourself and Starr Bus Charter and Tours?
Great.
Just to get things started.
I'll be happy to. I am the third generation of Starr. That's Starr with 2 R's. We are a charter motor coach company and we plan our own tours. I'm specifically responsible for the tour division, package tours. So that means you can be, 1 or 2 people and join us on a vacation to Cape Cod, where we'll drive by bus with a tour director and hotel. We take care of all of the details. And then we also rent out our own motor coaches. So if you have a social engagement with a group of people, or you want to go to Atlantic City for a junket, corporate meetings, airport transfers, fundraisers, whatever you want, we rent the bus out for that.
You've got people to move and you don't want to be responsible for coordinating it, you're the person to talk to.
Absolutely.
That's what I'm hearing.
Absolutely.
Okay. Let's start with what you just said about being a third generation business owner. I mean, that's quite an accomplishment. Most businesses don't get to Gen 3. Funny, I was just at a conference yesterday where there was family businesses and talking about their generational issues, which maybe we'll unpack some of that here. But I know you had a very interesting story in terms of how you got involved with the business. I think, if I'm not mistaken, your dad actually hired a headhunter to recruit somebody.
Yes. Growing up, I heard my parents always talking about the business, and we never really had a conversation about me coming to work for the business. I went away to college, and then after that, I moved even further away. So here I am on the West Coast, engaged, ready to be married, kind of figuring out where we're gonna maybe possibly buy our first home. And I get a call. My dad had hired a headhunter to fill a position at Starr. And the headhunter, who was a friend of the family and knew me, said to my dad, did you ask your daughter if she was interested in the job? And my dad said, oh no, I don't want to be that pushy dad. She lives in California. She has a great job. No, she'll come to me if she wants to work for the company. And the headhunter said, well, are you okay if I talk to her about possibly coming to the business and taking this job? And he said, sure, if you want. So sure enough, I was flying home to plan my wedding, and I had an interview with the headhunter, and then I went and interviewed with the president of the company, and I got the job. And I took the job because, living in California as a newlywed, we couldn't have bought a new, our first home. But obviously cost of living was so much better on the East Coast, and my dad had to pay the headhunter to hire me, which is hilarious. And here I am 25 years later.
There's so many lessons in that. Had you actually thought about or had an interest in joining the business prior to getting that call?
I had thought about it a little bit, but really not a lot, because I had spent one summer working at Starr, other than just helping my parents here and there. And I was going down a totally different career path, a career path that ended up, funny enough, totally preparing me for this job. I didn't realize it at the time, but I was a buyer for a large department store. And as a buyer, you manage your own company within a larger company. So I was managing, in this case, women's underwear. and taking care of marketing, sourcing, product development, discount, pricing, discounting, profitability, everything that just totally related to running a business.
Yeah.
I just didn't know it at the time. So I had never really thought about it, and my dad didn't really talk to me about it. I don't know if he had thought about it back then. He was just sort of living in the moment and trying to, run this business every day.
Yeah, and so what does that then inform you about how to think about what's next after you?
Well, it's funny because, so I have 3 boys, all college-age kids, and my middle son is coming to work for us this summer. Mostly because he didn't get a job anywhere else.
Okay.
And I'm happy to provide that fallback for him. But I do think that it was so valuable for me to go out into that real world of business and have an experience, in my case for 7 years, working for a large corporation and then coming back to work in my family's business and then eventually to own it. So I knew a lot of things that I didn't want to do and a lot of things that I did want to do. So I do hope that my kids are interested in it. I mean, it's a great opportunity to have a family business or to be your own boss.
Sure.
But I don't want to pressure them, just like my dad didn't pressure me. So it's hard to know. So we don't think about that next generation really yet because we're just living in the moment.
Gotcha. And maybe your son won't watch this episode, but do you intend to kind of nudge him to maybe work somewhere else too before he gets fully immersed in your shop?
I think so. I don't think I'll have to nudge him too much. I think he wants to go out, make the big bucks for a couple of years and do, work in Manhattan or, hang out with his friends and do that. And then, when he realizes that when you're your own boss and you can work and build your own company and be a business owner and provide well-being for so many people, it's really rewarding.
Yeah, and maybe if he is watching, and for the other business owners out there in the audience, from what I've learned from my conversations and talking with business owners, the ones that have had their children go out into the real world and work somewhere else first, cut their teeth and see how things work, they've had better experiences when they've come into the family business because they've seen it, they've done it, and they have some, we'll call it bona fides, because they're not just there because of the last name happens to be the same one as the business owner.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Let's talk about how you grew up in the business. You got to see a lot of different aspects of it, didn't you?
I got to see a lot of different aspects. My dad was working all the time. It was my dad and my uncle running the business, and there were so many different aspects of it. Being on call 24/7. Dealing with the safety issue is huge. When you own a transportation company, sure, you have all of the same challenges that any business owner has, but then you add this level of safety, right? Because you're actually putting your staff and 55 other people in a bus, and you just, obviously you're super concerned that nothing will go wrong.
Sure.
So I think that's sort of the biggest thing that I learned growing up is the company came first all the time. I don't mean like versus my family or anything, but it was, if there was a driver calling, my dad would always answer the phone. And I do the same thing. So if you ask my staff, tell me about Sandy, they would say, she's always available. That's probably one of the first things that they would say. And I have to be able to provide that for them. I can't expect them to go out and do what they're doing without providing a support behind them. So I think that's probably the biggest takeaway that I took from growing up around the business is just how much you have to focus on it and work on it.
Yeah, and prior to taking the reins as CEO, you were involved in the marketing aspects of the business.
Yeah,
right?
I'm actually not CEO. My husband, I convinced to come work for Starr about 5 years ago, and he's now the president. So he's the president and co-owner with me, and he sort of oversees the entire company, and my specific responsibilities are the tour division and marketing. So I do marketing for the whole company and then the tour division. Sort of a joke, I say, I'm the boss at home and he's the boss at work, but I'm really the boss in both places.
Yeah, and he probably knows that. Yeah.
He's a smart guy.
We all do. We all
good.
do. So when you joined the company, was Dad still a part of the firm?
Yeah, actually my dad was still actively working in the business, probably through COVID, helped us get through COVID, and then I would say probably around 21, 22, started to scale back a little bit.
And what was that like for you, right? You're now working with Dad and everything that comes with having grown up, daughter, father, and now you're going to be in the leadership role and with him phasing out. Talk a little bit about that experience. What's that emotional component look like?
Yeah, the the father-daughter relationship thing. I worked with my dad for more than 20 years, and I learned so much from him. And if you know me, you'll know I'm a very, honest, forthright, open person. So we'd be in meetings and I'd say things to him and people would go, oh! And, I just would talk to him like he's my dad, right. Trying to keep a professional atmosphere, obviously. But I learned a lot from him. I certainly learned a lot from him. And I wanted him to phase out at his desire, I think that if COVID didn't happen, I'm not sure that he would have phased out, to be perfectly honest. But at the same time, my mom was working in the business as well. So talk about a family business, my uncle, my dad, my mom. My mom was our travel agent. So she worked as a travel agent, and COVID really obviously killed that business. And I think because she wasn't working anymore, my dad was able to really start to step back and say, okay, Sandy and now Pete are really doing a great job running this business. He had a level of confidence. I had to help him understand that he could have confidence in us. And I think he always knew that I could do a good job, but there's a difference of doing a good job every day versus taking over the ownership of the company. That's a big leap.
Oh, for sure. Sandy, for everybody out there watching, listening, want to learn more about you, how they can book a tour, just connect with you and learn more about you, what's the best way for them to contact you? The best way is, well, first of all, I would love to invite you to come to our website, www.starrtours.com. And remember, it's Starr, S-T-A-R-R, T-O-U-R-S. I'm on LinkedIn. That's a great way to reach out. Sandy Borowsky, B-O-R-O-W-S-K-Y. And all the normal channels. My email address is sborowsky@starrtours.com. So I love to connect with people. Gotcha. My producer just gave me the word that we were coming close to a commercial break, but I don't want to take you down a rabbit hole, so I'm going to call an audible and we'll break right now. You sit here, don't go anywhere. Folks watching and listening, you sit tight. We're going to pay a few bills and we'll be right back on Behind the Numbers.
Today's episode of Behind the Numbers is brought to you by Hafley Flanagan. Hafley Flanagan is a full-service accounting firm that's been serving our clients since 1967. We are not your typical accounting firm. Our services extend well beyond tax and audit to include valuation services, strategic and succession planning, leadership development, and more. When you work with Hafley Flanagan, we help you realize your long-term goals. Learn more at hfco.com or call 856-722-5300.
Un ataque cerebral puede ser fácil de detectar. Su ser querido no logra hablar o quizás no puede moverse, pero existe otro síntoma de ataque cerebral que muchos de nosotros no vemos. Se llama negligencia espacial y puede ocurrir durante o después de un ataque cerebral, causando movimientos visuales distorsionados. Afortunadamente, existe una solución que utiliza tecnología óptica basada en prismas durante la rehabilitación. Si usted o su ser querido experimenta un ataque cerebral, pregúntele a su doctor sobre la negligencia espacial. Encuentre más información en kesslerfoundation.org.
Weeds. I have you surrounded. You just gonna stand there? Or are you gonna take your lawn back?
We're gonna take it back.
We're gonna take it back.
With Scott's Turf Builder triple action, it gets 3 jobs done at once. Kills weeds, prevents crabgrass, and keeps your lawn growing strong. Glorious!
No.
Get a bag of Scott's triple action today. It's guaranteed.
Hi everyone, welcome back to Behind the Numbers. I'm Dave Bookbinder and I am with Sandy Borowsky, who's the owner at Starr Bus Charter and Tours. Sandy, welcome back for round 2 here.
I'm glad to be back, actually.
Yeah, I'm glad you're still here. Last time, no. Before we went to the break, you mentioned something about COVID, and I wanted to talk to you about that. So many lessons learned in COVID across all the business communities, and everyone I've spoken to has had their own unique story about it. And I'd love to hear yours, especially because yours, I mean, clearly it's a people business, it's tourism, and the world shut down. What happened with your business?
Yeah, it was horrendous. Looking back, you know, we always talk like pre-COVID, post-COVID, and I wonder when that's going to go away or if it's going to go away. But COVID for us as business owners was just horrible. Of course, it was horrible that we couldn't, you know, put people on buses and take people places. But the worst part was having to lay off our staff. We laid off our entire staff. We laid off ourselves because we had to do what we had to do to survive. But you know, there's a silver lining to every story. You know, I was able to take the time and go deep into the business. I mean, I was the one running the refunds and talking to the customers and asking them to be patient while we got through everything that we needed to get through. And my husband was talking to the staff and, you know, at the same time, you know, figuring out the finances of the business and how we can stay alive. Yeah. So everybody was, you know, my dad, my husband, myself, all of our team, the folks that we laid off even were helping us, you know, do what we had to do. And, you know, it forced us to take a deeper look at things, and we're stronger today because of it. We had to make some super tough decisions that we've never, you know, thought we had to make. But we rebuilt our team. Most of the team was able to come back, which was great. We've rebuilt and we've reinvented ourselves in a lot of ways. For example, there was a similar company to ours in Maryland, a company called Air, E-Y-R-E, Air Bus and Tours. And they shuttered during COVID. And the gal that managed their tour division was an older woman, and she retired. And because the owners of that company weren't as adept in tours, they weren't going to reopen their tour division like we were able to. So my husband had the idea of how about if we run their tour division for them. We'll use their buses, and just instead of this Philadelphia, New Jersey tour company, we'll have another tour company in Maryland. And of course I was like, oh my God, that sounds like a lot of work. That was my first reaction. But when I thought of it, I was like, this is a win-win for everybody, because at the time I was looking to rebuild my staff and needing to give them more things to do. And I knew this company, who we'd been friends with for 2 generations, they were obviously didn't want to lose the revenue of their tour business and the charter side of their business that they use their buses for the tours. So we came in and we said, how about we run your tour business for you? And they went for it. And here we are 2.5 years into a 5-year agreement, and we just actually had our mid-agreement review, and everybody's super happy. And it's been a really great opportunity for us to employ even more people, provide transportation and tours for even more people. And we've had some calls of other companies that possibly want us to run their tour division now. So we would have never thought of that before.
Yeah. Yeah. And one of the other things that you share with me was something regarding college break bus.
Yeah, so when my oldest son, who's now graduating next week with his master's, he was going to college, and as were lots of our friends' kids, and they were all lamenting that they had to drive back and forth from Penn State, and in some cases Pittsburgh, where a lot of his friends went to school. So they said, well, can you just provide bus transportation for our kids? Because we don't want to go and pick them up for Thanksgiving break or winter break. And of course, again, we were like, I don't know, let's think about that. So my husband Pete and I, we talked about it probably for a few months, and we thought about this possible business that we could have. Fast forward 5 years later, and we've got a company now called College Break Bus, and we use our buses, but also other bus companies' buses, to provide transportation to bring kids from colleges, 8 colleges now, Syracuse, West Virginia, Penn State, Pitt, University of Rhode Island, lots of colleges, and it ended up self-serving because when my son was at school, he used college break bus because, you know, why not? So that's been a really neat thing. And I remember one time talking to the head of transportation at Penn State at main campus, and he said, Sandy, anything I can do to keep 50 buses off of my campus, I will do. And that was one bus. So now 10 buses at Penn State, 500 cars later, he's keeping off of campus, which makes me happy. He's happy. We're keeping 500 buses off, cars off the road because these kids don't have to be picked up by their parents now. Right. The parents don't have to take a day off of work, all of that good stuff. So there's so much good in college break bus, and it's fun too.
Yeah, and it's brilliant, and it kind of speaks to the idea as an entrepreneur, you need to embrace opportunity wherever the idea may come from, and sometimes they're kind of right under your nose, and good for you for leaning into it. I want to shift gears a little bit about the business from the standpoint of the family within the company. And not the family, your relatives, but your employees. I know you feel strongly and deeply about them. Talk a little bit about that aspect and how you've built trust with your employees, especially coming out of COVID and everything that you've been through.
Yeah, I do consider them my family, and I hope they would say the same thing. You know, as a small family business, although I say small, I don't know how truly small we are, but maybe we're medium-sized. We have a great opportunity to work alongside our team so that we're all working together. So we're not sitting at 10,000 feet telling people what to do and how to do it. We are in the trenches with them. So we're listening to them, we're sharing ideas, we're going back and forth. The other day, I mean, we've had this big project. We're migrating from one technology to another technology, and it's very hard to do during the day when you're taking calls and doing your everyday work. So I sent out a message and I said, hey, you guys want to have a pajama party, a pizza pajama party. I was like, we'll work at 5 o'clock, we'll go out for a walk for 15 minutes, we'll come back, I'll order in pizza, AKA they made me change it to Panera because it was healthier. I was fine with that. So we worked from 5 to 8 o'clock and everybody did it. Like nobody complained. In fact, at the end, they're like, can we do this again?
Were they in pajamas too?
Not all of us,
okay.
But there was, I would say probably a third in pajamas.
I'm surprised you got to push back on the pizza, not the pajamas, but okay.
Yeah, there was a few people that were like, you don't want to see my pajamas. I'm like, thank you.
Yeah, that's fair. Got it. So I'm going to ask you, how would you describe your culture?
Well, I think about this all the time because as I try to hire and fill positions as we grow, for me, it's trying to find a person to fit into the culture, right? So I have to understand what the culture is to be able to solve that challenge because I'm not looking for the person with the most experience or the brightest person. I'm looking for somebody that can fit in because we'll teach them what to do. But if they're not working 110%, they're not going to fit in. It's just the culture. Yeah. So the culture is these folks are super hard workers. They focus on the end of the day that they're providing these memories to last a lifetime. So they're not just going through the motions. They are making sure that they're providing all this information to the client that they can have the best experience possible. Same with the drivers, same with the tour directors. So they're going that extra mile. So it's hardworking, it's dedicated, they're focused on the success of the company, and they're just really good people.
Yeah, and look, I love the fact that you're doing this with intention. When I talk to business owners that are doing intentional culture, they usually have great experience with their employees. And obviously you're a great leader in thinking about your team as family, and that's a great place to start from. But I've got to ask you, because so many people talk about the mission and the purpose and start with why, and if you get your people bought into the mission, great things happen. How did you get everyone to understand that this isn't just the job thing? Like you said, they're about creating memories for people. How did you build that into the DNA of the organization?
That's a great question, and I'm not sure I know how to answer it. I think it's just you hire the right people and they help you focus on the right things. And we don't take ourselves too seriously. Obviously, safety is extremely serious. I'm not talking about that. But we try not to sweat the small stuff and try to focus on the big picture. Obviously, we need to focus on the details, but we try not to sweat them. Yeah. And a lot of times people are worried that they'll have to come in and give me bad news, and I'm like, okay, how are we going to solve it? What are we going to do? Because you can't fix everything. You know, we got a call just yesterday, a hotel that we're bringing a group of 50 people to has a boiler that's broken, and the part that they needed to repair did not come in. And won't come in for our stay. So we, you know, everybody was like, oh my God, we have to change the hotel at the last minute. But we rely on our partners. So the hotel that had the boiler problem called and found a same type of hotel, close location, made all the arrangements for us to stay there, all of the requests and things like that. Hey, they're giving everybody a drink when they get in too. That always seems to, like, you know, calm down. But you know, when you're providing services for senior citizens like we do, they don't like to be surprised.
Right.
And we don't like to surprise them.
Yeah.
So, you know, my staff said, should we send them an email and tell them that we're changing the hotel? Absolutely. No reason not to. You know, you can't surprise them. So I don't know, to answer your question, I'm not really sure, because I lived it. It's just, but I think if you work hard next to the people and with the people you're working with, you will build this culture that you're proud of.
Yeah. Tell the audience how they can connect with you, Sandy, if they want to learn more about you or Starr Bus.
Well, I would love for you to go to startours.com, and if you want to hear about College Break Bus, collegebreakbus.com.
Oh, it's got its own website.
It does.
That's very clever.
Yeah.
Awesome. I want to talk to you about something that you share with me about the emotional ties associated with ownership. And I know you guys were going through, or are going through, a rebrand with your logo. Mm-hmm. Talk a little bit about what you're dealing with there. And it looks like we've got just a few minutes to go here, so I'm going to ask you to keep it in about 3 minutes.
You got it. So we had the same logo pretty much since the 70s, and we had been talking about a possible change in branding, which of course comes with a new logo, and colors and just everything. And my husband, who really has the ability to sort of think ahead and think bigger picture, and challenge us to think about what do we want the brand to be. And my dad, my mom, and my uncle, and even my grandfather, they wanted this company that was strong and sleek. So if you look at the old logo, it's, you know, angled, and it's moving forward, and it's bright, and you can see the bus from far away. And that worked for a period of time, but we felt that the brand had sort of morphed a little bit into this, yes, we still have all of that, and we've built that in the last 50 years, but now we want to talk about the fun and the lightheartedness and the travel aspect. So instead of capital letters, you know, maybe it's lowercase letters, and you know, more of an updated look. So when we presented that to my parents, they had a hard time accepting that, for sure. And they had to digest it and think about it. And I think it challenged them to look around and see what other people were doing with different, you know, different industries, different types of things. And eventually they said, you know what, your company, your decision. And it was, you know, everything's a risk, right? You know, it was a leap of faith, and we rebranded, and the feedback that we have gotten is better than we ever could have imagined. So
yeah, and good for you for, you know, evolving in that regard, because it's a subtle shift, but like you said, it's a message that changed. Yeah. In about 60 seconds, I want to give you a chance to share something with, I know you wanted to convey how important it is to be giving back to organizations. You've done a lot of great things. You were the recipient of a lot of positivity, and I know you're big on giving back, and I want to give you a chance to speak to that.
I think it's super important to play a part in industry organizations if you have that opportunity. To give back to your community, to volunteer in your community on a personal level, but then on a professional level, how can you give back? Because you're taking so much out of this business, whether you're a business owner or an employee. You know, try to help somebody else and try to give back where you've taken. And every time I do it, it helps me just as much as it helps the person. So I feel, I'm like, here I think I'm giving back, but I'm taking again. So I have to keep giving back so that it balances out. So, but I think you have to continue to grow. And when you work in especially when you work in a a smaller business, you have to go to find outside opportunities to how you can grow.
And look, what you just alluded to is something that I call a virtuous cycle. The more you give, the more you actually do receive. And it's great that you're doing that, so thank you for that. We are out of time, unfortunately, Sandy, but it's been a pleasure having you here today.
Thank you so much for having me, and thanks for putting a name to that virtuous cycle. That's
there you
good.
Go.
I got to get on
Feel
that.
free to use that.
I will. Thanks, Dave.
She is Sandy Borowsky, owner of Starr Bus Charters and Tours. Definitely check them out. Go visit the website, as she mentioned. My name is Dave Bookbinder. I'm the one that my clients turn to when they want to know what their most important assets are worth. So definitely reach out to me. You can always find me on LinkedIn. And if you're a business owner that doesn't know the value of your business, we should definitely talk. I want to thank the Big Cheese for running the board today. I want to thank Hafley Flanagan, who sponsored today's episode. Definitely give them a look. They're at hfco.com. And as their tagline says, they're not your typical accounting firm. And we've had other people on this program who have said exactly those words. So definitely check them out. And thank you out there for watching and listening. Can't do it without you. So you're very much appreciated. That's all we have today, gang. We'll see you next time on Behind the Numbers.
Today's episode of Behind the Numbers is brought to you by Hafley Flanagan. Hafley Flanagan is a full-service accounting firm that's been serving our clients since 1967. We are not your typical accounting firm. Our services extend well beyond tax and audit to include valuation services, strategic and succession planning, leadership development, and more. When you work with Hafley Flanagan, we help you realize your long-term goals. Learn more at hfco.com or call 856-722-53.